we got a lot of feedback from people, and a lot of it from people on the street. But it was a different approach. Rather than having to challenge me because I was on Saturday Night Live, they wanted to protect me.
After 4 decades of near silence, Jane Curtin is finally speaking out. At 77, the woman behind one of TV's most beloved sitcoms is pulling back the curtain, pun intended, on what really happened behind the scenes of Kate and Allie, Saturday Night Live, and everything in between. She didn't just quietly exit the spotlight, she fled from it. The original Weekend Update queen is now opening up about awkward Emmy wins, secret struggles, and why she used to hide out in Connecticut just to feel normal again. Turns out, while America was falling in love with her characters, Jane was living an entirely different life, far away from the cameras, the fame, and even her fans. Her story is smart, subtle, and surprisingly rebellious, kind of like her comedy. Let's dive into the real Jane Curtin. Early life. Born in 1947 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Jane Therese Curtin was raised in a world of discipline, devotion, and academic buzz. Her dad ran an insurance agency, and her mom kept the household in check. She was Irish-American, with family roots tracing back to County Clare, Ireland. Right in the middle of Boston's intellectual heartbeat, Harvard on one side, MIT on the other, Jane's childhood was a unique mix of Catholic guilt and Ivy League brainpower. She went to Newton Country Day School, a strict Catholic girls' school that hammered in faith, order, and ladylike manners. But underneath the polished exterior, Jane was quietly developing her superpower, deadpan control. While the rest of the class cracked up, she learned how to hold a straight face. That unshakable stillness would later define her entire comedy style. The detour into comedy. After high school, Jane moved to New York City and enrolled in Elizabeth Seton Junior College, a Catholic school smack in the middle of a city exploding with protests, music, and counterculture. It was 1965, and New York was electric. Jane soaked it in, but she wasn't ready to rebel yet. After 2 years, she transferred to Northeastern University back in Boston. But by 1968, something inside her cracked. She dropped out. She didn't ease into it. She leaped straight into comedy. This was not a calculated move. It was bold, radical, and unheard of for someone so rule-following. But comedy had been in her blood for years. Her cousin Valerie Curtin was already making waves as an actress and writer, and her uncle Joseph was a successful radio man. Plus, Jane had 3 siblings, an in-house audience for her early practice in timing, tone, and taking on different roles. The future comic would later say losing her brother and sister deepened her emotionally, even as she made people laugh. Paying dues, the proposition. Jane's first real break came with a scrappy little comedy troupe called The Proposition in Cambridge. It was anything but glamorous. A tiny theater, 6 nights a week, sometimes 3 shows a night. She stuck it out for 4 years. The sketches were political, edgy, and risky, but Jane's cool delivery made her stand out. By 1972, she had logged over 1,000 live shows. No fame, no riches, but in Boston, she was becoming that woman with the brilliant timing. After The Proposition, she co-wrote and starred in an off-Broadway show called Pretzels in 1974. Built with her old troupe members, it featured character pieces about life in the city. Jane played everyone from disillusioned housewives to sharp-tongued neighbors, effortlessly switching between roles. Critics took note. She wasn't just acting, she was writing, shaping, and commanding the stage. But theater doesn't pay well. So from 1972 to 1975, she picked up every commercial gig she could. Soap, cereal, even deodorant. In one, she played twins. These weren't glamorous roles, but they taught her something crucial: how to face the camera, hit marks, and never crack under absurd scripts. She joked later that she could sell anything with a poker face. Enter SNL, a life-changing accident. 1975, a weird little variety show was taking shape in New York. A new kind of comedy. People whispered about auditions. Jane showed up to one with a few friends, not expecting much. She wasn't even prepared. But in a moment of panic, she pulled a sketch from her bag that she'd once written for a screen test. She paired up with another unknown comic named Gilda Radner, and magic happened. The producers saw it instantly. She was cool, precise, a calm center in the chaos. That audition changed everything. Jane Curtin became one of the 7 original cast members of Saturday Night Live. $750 a week. Live TV. No safety nets. The quiet storm on SNL. From day one, Jane played it differently. While everyone else on SNL tried to out-crazy each other, she stayed still. Didn't chase airtime. Didn't force jokes. "I figured if they hired me, they'd use me," she once said. She didn't go to parties. Didn't hang out at clubs. She went home, to her husband, to her garden, to her dog. It wasn't antisocial, it was survival. In 1976, Chevy Chase left. And just like that, Jane became the face of Weekend Update. Millions of Americans watched her every Saturday night as she read fake news with dead-on delivery. Whether paired with Dan Aykroyd or Bill Murray, Jane remained the steady one. Her dry reactions became iconic. One sketch, Point Counterpoint, featured Aykroyd shouting, "Jane, you ignorant slut!" She responded with the perfect icy comeback. It became a national catchphrase. But Jane had mixed feelings. Kids shouted it at her on the street. Even cleaned-up versions, "Jane, you ignorant slug!" followed her for years, and she admitted later, it wouldn't fly today. Belushi, sexism, and staying clean. Behind the laughter, it wasn't all fun. Jane had a rough working relationship with John Belushi. She called him an addict. Once, she even caught him rifling through her purse, likely looking for drugs. She went to Lorne Michaels. "You've got to do something. This guy's going to die." Nothing changed. Belushi also told her flat out, "Women aren't funny." Jane didn't argue. She just kept working. And she proved him wrong, week after week. While the rest of the cast partied all night, Jane went home. No booze, no drugs, just work. She was labeled a buzzkill, a square. She didn't care. Decades later, she was still standing while others weren't. The birth of Primat and a career in cones. Jane also co-created one of SNL's weirdest, most beloved characters, Primat Conehead. With Dan Aykroyd playing Beldar, the Conehead family became a cultural phenomenon. What started as a sketch idea, inspired by Easter Island statues and stoner logic, turned into toys, a song by Frank Zappa, and eventually, a movie. Jane played the stone-faced alien matriarch like a masterclass in subtle comedy. She once joked that Aykroyd would sweat so much, it filled up his foam cone head. It was ridiculous. It was genius. It was Curtin at her deadpan best. Post-SNL, aimless but not lost. When Jane Curtin left Saturday Night Live in 1980, it wasn't a graceful transition. It was a free fall. She'd just spent 5 years becoming a TV icon. But suddenly, there were no clear offers, no roadmaps. Hollywood didn't know what to do with a smart, grounded woman who wasn't desperate for attention. She described those years as a whirlwind of pressure and disappointment. She filmed pilots. She auditioned. Nothing clicked. Out in public, fans would approach her, sometimes not so kindly. The fame she had wasn't the kind that made life easier. If anything, it made her want to vanish. But then, a strange pitch landed in her lap. A sitcom called Two Mommies. Her first reaction? I wanted to barf. She wasn't kidding. The name felt fluffy, patronizing, and flat-out dumb. But beneath the bad title was something promising. The concept came from Sherry Coben, a creator who had seen how divorced women supported each other. This wasn't a gag, it was real life. A CBS exec saw potential, and so did director Bill Persky, an old-school craftsman who knew how to write character-driven stories. In their first meeting, he told Jane, "This won't be another sugary sitcom. I want real conversations, honest flaws, and quiet strength." That sold her, and thankfully, the title changed. Kate and Allie was born. Kate and Allie, more than a mom comedy. Jane had worked with Susan St. James before on how to beat the high cost of living. They had chemistry. Susan was bubbly and spontaneous. Jane was calculated and dry. The contrast worked. So when Kate and Allie premiered in 1984, their dynamic felt instantly believable. They weren't sitcom stereotypes. They were women you knew. Friends, mothers, survivors of bad marriages. Jane insisted on making her character, Allie, feel real. She didn't want a smiley, saccharine mom. She wanted layers, anxiety, growth, and quiet empowerment. She collaborated with the writers, adding little ticks and subtle evolutions over the years. Allie transformed from a dependent housewife to a confident single woman. Audiences noticed, especially women. By the end of the series, Allie had become someone viewers rooted for, someone they recognized in themselves. Emmy wins and quiet shrugs. In 1984, Jane won her first Emmy for Kate and Allie. Then she did it again the very next year. Back-to-back wins. That kind of thing didn't happen often, especially not for a woman leading a sitcom. But Jane didn't throw a party. When someone asked her how it felt, she gave a classic Curtin answer. Nothing happens the morning after. She still woke up, made breakfast, and went to work. The trophy didn't mean much, other than making a decent paperweight in her office. Meanwhile, Susan St. James was nominated 3 times and never won. It wasn't anyone's fault, but it created an awkward imbalance that hung over the show. Jane, ever composed, didn't let it change her. She wasn't in this for trophies. She wanted real work and a real life. The Connecticut Escape Plan. During the run of Kate and Allie, Jane made a radical choice. She moved to Sharon, Connecticut. It wasn't just about peace and quiet. It was about sanity. In New York, she was a celebrity. In Connecticut, she was just Jane from down the road. She commuted into the city for work and left as soon as filming wrapped. That buffer zone between fame and normalcy was her secret weapon. Her co-star, Susan, even said that if Jane hadn't done that, the show probably wouldn't have lasted. At home, she wasn't a sitcom queen. She was a wife, a mom, a neighbor. A marriage that lasted. Back in the mid-1970s, before SNL, Jane had gone to a hockey game, just for fun. She had no idea she was about to meet the love of her life, Patrick Lynch. They married in April 1975, just months before Saturday Night Live would change her life. And somehow, through it all, chaos, fame, the grind of television, their marriage stayed strong. 50 years and counting. Jane waited until she was 35 to become a mother. Her daughter, Tess, was born in 1983. The timing was intentional. She wanted to be ready. She once joked that Tess was the most annoying but loving part of her life. It was classic Curtin, funny, blunt, honest. Motherhood changed her. It changed her career. Suddenly, job offers weren't about clout or press. They were about schedule and sanity. Family came first. Quiet activism and UNICEF. While Jane avoided red carpets and celebrity dinners, she never stopped giving back. She became a national ambassador for UNICEF. No photo ops, no press tours, just real work, using her platform to support children's health and education. Later, she competed on Celebrity Jeopardy and won $250,000 for the organization. Even though she didn't win the game, her donation made a real impact. Jane wasn't one to chase headlines. She believed in showing up, doing the work, and then going home. Feminist by experience, not theory. Jane has talked openly about how SNL changed the way she saw gender in the workplace. Before the show, she'd been in troupes where equality was the norm. At SNL, it wasn't. John Belushi, for example, told her straight up that women didn't belong in comedy. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't hidden, and it wasn't acceptable. Jane didn't yell, she didn't debate, she proved him wrong. Live every Saturday night. Her calm defiance paved the way for other women in comedy. She didn't talk about being a trailblazer, she just was one. After Kate and Allie, hits and misses. When Kate and Allie wrapped in 1989, Jane Curtin was once again at a crossroads. She had just come off two massive hits, SNL and Kate and Allie. And you'd think offers would be flooding in, but that wasn't the case. In 1990, she took a chance on another sitcom, Working It Out. It sounded solid. Same creator as Kate and Allie, similar tone, but it fizzled just 13 episodes before it was canceled. That hit hard. It wasn't just about the show, it was about the momentum or lack of it. For a few years, Jane drifted. No leading roles, no major headlines. She wasn't fading, but she wasn't lighting up the screen either. While some of her SNL peers were making blockbuster movies, Jane stuck with television. It was familiar, reliable, predictable, just the way she liked it. Third Rock, a comeback in a wig. Then came the comeback no one saw coming. Third Rock from the Sun. The show needed someone grounded, someone who could play opposite John Lithgow's insane alien character without getting lost in the chaos. Initially, the part of anthropology professor Mary Albright went to someone else, but producers felt she was too sweet, too soft. That's when creator Bonnie Turner, an SNL alum, called up Jane. Would she do 7 episodes? Just try it out? Jane agreed, and once she was in, she stayed. Mary Albright was skeptical, smart, and always 5 seconds from completely losing it. The perfect foil to the aliens around her. And it worked. Jane's dry delivery anchored the entire show. Without her, Third Rock might have floated off into cartoon land. But with her, it had gravity, it had bite, and it had balance. The Emmy snub that never made sense. Despite her critical role in Third Rock, Jane Curtin never got nominated for an Emmy. Not once. Meanwhile, John Lithgow won 3. Kristen Johnston won twice. Even guest stars were getting recognized. Jane? Nothing. It was baffling, especially since she'd already won 2 Emmys for Kate and Allie. To the public, she didn't seem bitter, but the silence was hard to ignore. Other awards noticed her. She won a Golden Satellite Award and earned SAG nominations with the ensemble. But the Emmys? They kept looking the other way. Coneheads, the movie gamble. During the early 90s, Jane took a risky step back into her SNL roots, the Coneheads movie. Sure, the sketches had been a fan favorite, but turning them into a full-length film? That could have backfired hard. Jane hesitated. She didn't want to seem like she was stuck in the past. But Dan Aykroyd called, and the team came together again. So, she did it. Reviews were mixed. Some critics liked it. Others didn't. But Jane held her ground. Her chemistry with Aykroyd was intact. Her deadpan timing? Still razor sharp. Over time, the movie found a cult following. The librarian era. A new audience. Between 2004 and 2008, Jane jumped into something completely unexpected. The Librarian movie series. She played Charlene, the stern, secretive assistant to a magical library that protected powerful relics. Fantasy? Adventure? Definitely not her usual zone. But it worked. She brought her calm, no-nonsense vibe to a wild, supernatural world, and once again, she anchored the chaos. The movies were successful enough to spark a spin-off TV series, and Jane reprised her role. connecting her to an entirely new generation. For many younger viewers, she wasn't the woman from SNL. She was the smart lady in the Magic Library. And she was great at it. Theater returns. The Roots call back. After Third Rock ended in 2001, Jane returned to where it all began, the stage. She had started in improv, but now she was tackling serious drama. In 2002, she appeared in a revival of Our Town alongside Paul Newman. It was a big deal and a critical success. The performance reminded audiences and critics that Curtin wasn't just a sitcom veteran. She had range, depth, serious chops. In the 2000s and 2010s, she kept performing. Live readings, radio guest spots, anything that let her work without all the glitz. She wasn't gone. She was just choosing her moments. The Oscar film cameo, silence that spoke volumes. In 2018, Jane had a small but unforgettable role in Can You Ever Forgive Me? She played Marjorie, a literary agent trying to hold together Melissa McCarthy's crumbling character. It was a quiet role. No big speeches, no theatrics. But Jane's expressions, her stillness, those told the entire story. It was acting distilled to its purest form. The movie earned multiple Oscar nominations. And while Jane didn't get one, critics praised her performance for what it was: subtle, brilliant, and absolutely essential. The voice of a generation, literally. As her on-screen appearances slowed, Jane leaned into voice acting. She was a wasp in Ants. She returned to animation with Aykroyd. She narrated Cyber Chase, Recess, documentaries, and audiobooks. Her voice, measured, calm, and unmistakably Jane, found new homes in classrooms, streaming platforms, and headphones around the world. She didn't need to be seen to be heard. The lasting impact of a low-key legend. Jane Curtin didn't chase headlines. She didn't burn out. She didn't become tabloid material. She just kept working, kept showing up, kept perfecting the art of doing a lot by doing very little. Her career wasn't flashy. It was foundational. She showed that the quiet ones can change the game, that not all legends have to shout. Some just raise an eyebrow, say the line, and let the silence do the rest. Deadpan? Yes, but never dull. Just Jane Curtin.